All right, good morning, everybody. Let's get our cameras on, our mics muted. All right, so let's see who we've got today. One second. We have one of your classmates is in distress trying to get in to the Zoom link. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to send out the Zoom link again. One second. So how's everybody doing today? Who's on campus? What's happening in your lives? What do you guys got going on for the weekend? Anything fun? No? You guys just gonna say, Abita, what do you got going on? We haven't seen each other in like 23 hours. How have you been? What did you do over that time?
I was doing homework for one of my classes, and I watched a movie. Well, not movie, but TV show. That was pretty much it.
Show.
What was the show?
Yes.
Alice in Borderland.
What is that all about?
Something with mind games and physical strength and stuff like that. It's like a psycho thriller.
That sounds crazy. Dylan's dog sitting. Okay. Abita's watching mind game stuff. What else? Anybody else got anything fun? Merlin, what are you going on? Folks, let's get our cameras on. I know some of you don't have cameras. Some of you do, right? Come on, Ben G. I know you got a camera. Ben B, Alex, Roberts. No, Robert's having camera issues. There you are. Hi, Alex. How are you?
Doing all right.
Yeah, just all right. Not great. Okay. All right. Okay, everybody. Well, let's hop into what we're going to talk about today. Today, we are going to focus mostly on what it means to give an informative presentation. Okay. And again, these are things that this is a type of speech you've given your entire academic life. Whether you were doing a book report on Charlotte's Web, whether you were coming up and giving a speech on a historical figure, informative speeches are very common because, for lack of a better explanation, they're easy to do, okay? And your informative presentation that you're doing next Wednesday it's not a difficult speech from the standpoint of what you're trying to accomplish. Basically, what you're trying to accomplish is you're trying to teach your audience about your topic. Clear and simple. Whatever they do with that knowledge, whatever they do with that information isn't really up to you after you deliver it. Okay. All right. So let's hop into the course space. Okay. And all my buttons pushed here. So, by the way, just some quick housekeeping stuff. If you submitted your persuasive presentation topic, every topic that I've gotten up until now, every single topic that you've got up to now, you are approved. So you can move forward with that. Okay. So, again, I think I did 3 today. You can certainly change your topic if that's something that you need to do. All right. That's not a big deal, but do it sooner rather than later. And if you do change your topic, please make sure that you are at least telling me that you're changing your topic. Check out, whatever needs to be, done with it. Make sure you're doing it right. Don't wait till Tuesday night to change your topic also. That's a problem. But again, topics have been approved. You can move forward with that. Okay. And I'm sorry about this, folks. I've got to send out that link again to somebody. So that's essentially what we've got going on there. So let's get back into the course space and let's start talking about some of the other items that you've got going on. So we've talked about chapters 1, 3, and 4. Okay, that's what we've been covering over the last few classes. Chapter 14 deals with how to give an informative presentation. Okay. So an informative speech, I always tell people you want to play a role as a speaker, okay? Don't be yourself. Don't be, student Ben. Don't be student Alex. Don't be student Talia, okay? Be teacher Talia. Be teacher Ben. Be teacher Alex, okay? That's what you're acting as. That's your role. And if you play that role, it will kind of help get you in the mindset of what you need to do for your informative presentation, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, I've got a couple videos that we're going to take a look at that go over, they're real short, and they go over the basics of informative speaking. And I don't think, listen, public speaking all by itself isn't too complicated. Okay, there's no real tricks or equations that you need to learn, okay? So a lot of this stuff you'll probably find to be very commonsensical. But still, these are things that you have to understand as we progress to our demonstration presentation and then move on to our persuasive speech, because informative speaking is at the heart of all public speaking. Every type of speech that you give has some elements of informative speaking, whether it is persuasive speaking, special occasion speaking. If you're giving a presentation to entertain, okay? Informative speaking is at the heart of everything because you're always conveying information to your audience. So let's check out our first one here. Okay, hang on one sec. I'm sure that, yep, there's got to be a commercial. Wade through that. All right, so we're going to skip that ad. So here we go.
Can you name some of the memorable teachers that you've had in your lifetime? Take a moment to think about your favorite teachers over the years. What made them so great, so effective? How about some of your least favorite teachers? No need to shout out their names, but was there a reason that they weren't as effective as the others? When you're giving an informative speech, your job will be to teach. Your goal should be to be the most effective teacher possible. In this video, we'll talk about who's giving speeches to inform, list some common general informative speech topics, and cover some of the familiar organizational patterns used in informative speeches. Let's get started. We encounter informative speeches each and every day. In fact, you yourself have probably given something similar to an informative speech sometime this week, if not today. For example, when teachers teach, they're informing. When bosses give sales updates and explain policy changes, they're informing. When coaches coach, they're informing. When pastors and other clergy give sermons, they're often informing. When parents or friends share information with us with the goal of imparting knowledge, yep, you guessed it, they're informing. In your everyday interactions, you often need to be able to both give and receive informative messages. Because of that, you'll want to know how you can be the most effective. Before we get to that, though, what are all these informative messages about? Informative speeches can be about pretty much anything, but some common topical areas include speeches about people, places, objects, tacos, actions, processes, events, plants and animals, phenomena, issues, ideas, cats, concepts, and theories. If you need some advice on selecting a speech topic, we have a video dealing with precisely that process that can be found on the Compadres Media YouTube channel. To make sense of the topic and help the audience understand and retain as much of your speech as possible, it's important to organize it properly. You've probably already learned about organizational patterns. If not, once again, we have a video on that very topic on the Compadres Media channel, but it bears repeating, as some of those patterns are a better fit for informative speeches than others. For example, process or historical speeches will likely use a chronological pattern. Speeches about places or events might use the spatial organization pattern, which follows a directional flow. A comparative pattern might be used when moving from the known to the unknown, or for objectively presenting information about options. The same objectivity would be a hallmark for an informative speech using the pro-con organizational pattern. Pick a topic and then present an unbiased view from both or all sides. The causal or cause and effect pattern is great for explaining both what is happening and why. The topical organizational pattern, which simply selects and places main points in a logical order, would work for almost any informative speech topic you can think of. The key to picking the correct organizational pattern is determining which will be the most effective for the information that you plan to present. Start with the end in mind, having a firm understanding of the goals of your speech, and then consider which method of organization will best accomplish those goals. So what kind of teacher are you going to be? Carefully considering and selecting the topic for your informative speech and matching it effectively with an appropriate organizational pattern could make all the difference in determining which list you end up on for the folks in your audience. Choose wisely.
Okay, folks. So, hold on one second. God forbid YouTube would let us go without getting a add in. So, folks, after watching the video, tell me 3 important things that you need to do in an informative speech. Give me one thing. Who's got one thing? Go ahead. Who's got one thing? Come on, folks, let's go. Let's get the let out. Oh, now I gotta call people. Ben B, what do you got?
You gotta prepare properly. Like, know what you're talking about, know what you're going into, know like what you're supposed to be saying about it.
So you gotta prepare, right? Don't you think that's, well, okay, that's good. What else? Alex, what else? What else did they say in the video that you've got to do for an informative speech?
They said that there are 4 methods for figuring out how you want to structure your speech: chronological order, spatial order. There's the comparative order. I don't remember the third one.
Okay, that's good though. Okay, so an informative presentation needs a certain kind of order to convey information, like chronological order. Let's take that one. That's pretty easy, right? What's chronological order? Dylan, what's chronological order? Like if you're giving an informative speech, give me an example of how you would use chronological order to explain what you're talking about.
Like if I was giving a speech on, I don't know, World War II,
Okay.
I would say that D-Day happened before they dropped like the bombs on like Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Okay, sure. Like let's say you're talking about an event in history. Okay, you're a history teacher. You're giving a historical speech. Yeah, and to Dylan's point, yeah, World War II. Maybe you talk about the lead, like World War I. You talk about the lead up to World War II. You talk about the year it actually started. You talk about, you know, all the different dates. And that's a good way to kind of keep organization together. And folks, that's important. Organization, we'll get to it, I think, next week, is very important, especially when you're trying to teach somebody something, because people have to be able to follow with what you're talking about. Okay. All right, so that's two things. Give me one more. Give me one more thing that you need to consider when you're giving an informative presentation. Merlin, what do you got?
Picking an interesting topic.
Okay, that goes without saying. Taking another step, picking a topic and doing what with it?
Informing the audience with it.
Used inform to describe inform.
To properly get a point across, kind of like to educate the audience with it.
Right, okay. How do you educate the audience? Think about what we've talked about so far. Think of like chapter 3. Think about chapter 3. What did we talk about? Actually, Merlin, what did we talk about on Tuesday? We started talking about it on Tuesday. Do you remember Tuesday? Does anyone remember Tuesday? Do you remember what we had for dinner on Tuesday? Nobody does. Okay. Merlin, to your point, you want to take your topic and you need to think of how will I take that topic and engage my audience? Like you don't want to speak too high above what they know, and you don't want to dumb it down too much. Okay. Like if you're giving, to give you an idea, you know, if you are talking to a bunch of first or second graders, let's get back to Dylan's World War II, you're probably not going to get super in depth about all the different battles and all the different reasons and all the different issues that caused World War II because these kids are in second grade. You might give the broad strokes. But then again, let's say that you're giving a presentation and you're delivering it to a bunch of doctors, a bunch of physicians, okay? You're probably not going to be like, everyone, this is a scalpel. Okay, this is how you're going to cut somebody open. You know, this is a thermometer. Okay, like that's dumbing it down too much. So in informative speech, what's important is order is important. Okay, taking a topic and trying to cater to your audience's level of knowledge. Don't talk too above their head. Don't dumb it down too much. Is there anything else that I'm missing? It was a big one. And this is a thread that runs through all public speaking things. Ryan, what do you think? I'm glad you're here, buddy. Can't hear you though. Oh, now you muted yourself.
Is this working? Hello?
Hi, Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah. You have a shitty mic, Ryan.
Oh.
All right. What else? Folks, when you're giving an informative presentation, you want to make sure that you find a way to personalize what you're talking about. Okay. Now, you run a very fine line of putting your own personal bias to something, which is something you should try to avoid as best you can, but it's next to impossible to do that. You know, I'm teaching a public speaking class, okay? My background in public speaking is in marketing and public relations. Now, the way I teach my public speaking class, it's very different than somebody else that teaches a public speaking class that doesn't have the same background, okay? And they're gonna tell their stories and they're gonna focus on the concepts and terminologies that they feel are important. And I might believe that they're different. I might say like, well, you need to learn more about this and less about that. And you know, my doppelganger might say like, no, he's got it wrong, do this, that. But still, you wanna be able to personalize and put yourself into whatever it is that you're teaching. You know, and you'll see that especially when you get to the demonstration speech, like a lot of personal narrative is important because your audience also wants to connect with you. They don't want to just feel that you're like a talking head. They don't, you know, a lot of times people are like, well, you know, why can't I just read the textbook and I'll learn everything I need to learn? And you know that that's not a good way to take in information. You know, reading a textbook on public speaking isn't the same as a person sitting down and analyzing and breaking down what's going on in the textbook. Okay, all right. Everybody with me so far? Abidi, are you there? You're not watching your show, right? Good, all right. So let's hop back into it. Okay, and let's take a look at our last video for the day. Or is it our last video? No, it isn't. I think we have. So this is our second of 3. Okay. So this video is going to talk about some tips that you can use. Okay. The first one was kind of the broad strokes of informative speaking. This video talks about some tips and techniques that you can use to really bring your informative speech home. Jeff Goldblum. Oh, hang on a sec. Oh, this is a long one. Hold on. All right, let's share it up. Okay, we're good. Okay, folks, here we go. Oh, that's not what I wanted to share. That's what I wanted to share. Okay, folks, so here we go.
What about sticking the tongs of a fork in the creamy part of your Oreos so that you can dunk it in milk without getting your fingers messy? Missing an earring or other small object? Put a stocking around the end of your vacuum hose and use it to search so that it will be pulled up without being sucked all the way into the vacuum. Anyone with internet access can tell you that there are all kinds of these types of life hacks out there. In this video, though, we're going to give you some life hacks for informative speaking. We'll detail some techniques you'll want to use in your informative speeches, and we'll also discuss some helpful tips to becoming an effective informative speaker. Let's get started. Let's begin with some of the basic techniques you will use to inform. Generally speaking, there are 4 ways to impart knowledge. You can provide a definition, you can describe, you can explain, and you can demonstrate. The French Enlightenment era philosopher Voltaire once famously said, "If you wish to converse with me, define your terms." Defining is an essential first step to most educational endeavors. In addition to defining, though, you may also choose to describe something to your audience. How would you do this? The best way is to use vivid, concrete language and imagery. The goal is to help your audience picture in their mind what you're talking about as they're listening to you. Check out this example from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech.
But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great coast of opportunity of this nation. So we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice.
Words like bank, funds, vaults, and check all give us visual metaphors to think about the promises made to all Americans. When you use vivid, descriptive language, you're making the ideas in your head concrete and tangible so that they're as clear as possible for your audience to understand. Take a look at this example of the ladder of abstraction, a conceptual metaphor intended to help us understand the varying levels of concrete language. As you can see from this example, the farther down the ladder you go, the more specific and definite the nouns become, making the meaning much clearer along the way. Explanations, the third basic teaching technique, are great to detail how something works or how to address cause and effect, while the final technique, demonstrations, are perfect in teaching others how to do something. While using these 4 basic techniques and organizing your speech appropriately will be essential, you'll also want to remember a few other tips. First, while there are exceptions, objectivity is key to most forms of informational speaking. The basic idea behind this concept of objectivity is that you aren't intentionally taking a side like you would in a persuasive speech. In an informative speech, your goal is to present the information in an impartial and balanced way. The second important tip is that you must develop and appeal to your credibility as the speaker. Think of it this way. We trust, believe, and learn the most from those whom we believe are the most credible. Remember that credibility consists of 2 basic components, your competence and your character. While both are important, competency, or your expertise, experience, and knowledge within a field, is essential to effective teaching. A third tip would be to make sure the topic you're speaking on is relevant. If it isn't immediately evident to the audience, then you have to make the sell by making it personal. Give them a reason to listen to your speech. Don't assume they automatically want to hear what you have to say. Another way to increase your effectiveness as an informative speaker is to engage the audience. Yes, sometimes this may include inviting them to join you as you teach them how to draw or make origami, but it might also be as simple as asking a poll type question like, quick show of hands, how many of you have ever... Or even a simple rhetorical question that gets them thinking but does not require a response. Finally, and related to the idea of engagement, is the fact that it is often better to show than simply tell. If the old saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words holds true, then you'll be much more efficient and effective as a speaker using visuals to help enhance your audience's retention and understanding. These tips and techniques may or may not be as useful as knowing that using a can opener can help you cut through that annoying blister pack packaging without cutting yourself, but we hope that they will be helpful as you prepare your next informative speech.
Folks, so tell me some things that you learned in that video. Brent, what do you got? Anything?
Are you calling my name?
Yes.
Oh, what was the question again?
What did you pick up out of that video that's essential for an informative speech?
On the overall, just make it very clear.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be specifically precise, just make it clear. And one of the things that stood out to me is that when you're speaking, it doesn't necessarily mean that, everybody is basically attentive. It's just,
Okay.
it just depends on when you're speaking, how you're speaking.
Okay. All right. What else? How about Ben G? What do you got? Oh, he just signed out. What do you got, Ben G?
Whatchamacallit, to like, I don't know, make it like easier for the like audience to like understand, I guess.
How do you do that?
Huh?
How do you do that?
I don't know, just bringing it down to their level.
Okay. Bringing it down to their level. Anybody else? Ryan, what do you got?
They said to add visuals, like visuals make it a lot easier for an audience to understand like what you're trying to explain to them.
Visuals. Now, Ryan, would you say that you're a visual learner?
Yeah, I would say yes. Like if there is like so for example, if you're trying to explain like, a theory or something, it's easier if you have like graphics. Like if you're making a PowerPoint or something,
Okay.
makes
Sure.
a lot easier if you have like charts and stuff.
Folks, why do we have a whiteboard in the classroom? Why do we have PowerPoint projectors? Okay. In a class like this, I can tell you, it can come right out of my mouth and I can say, this is how you do public speaking. But, yesterday I had all that stuff drawn and written on the board. We're watching videos to help explain terms and concepts that have pictures and things like that. Okay. What else? What else is important to a student? Talia, what else is important? What else did you pull out of that video?
To have objectivity, although this is what you said, like make sure that you're not taking a side.
Okay. Yes.
It's not a persuasive, you're informing. So.
And is that easy to do?
No, because when we're giving a speech, we're obviously already on a certain side. So it is difficult to be objective while you're giving an informative speech, especially if you don't do it often.
Sure. And think about, you picked this topic because If you have experience with it, then you're going to put your own personal subjections in there. If it's something you're interested in, you're passionate about it. Well, passion is an emotion, and emotion sometimes can boil over. There's one other thing in there that I want us to mention. What else is important? We've got making sure you're clear, making sure that you incorporate a visual in some way, shape, or form, because people are visual learners, making sure that you stay as objective as possible. Okay, yes, you're not Gary. Who are you?
I'm Noah. This is actually my dad's old computer. So my dad's
Gary's not
Gary.
some kind of alias, but that's okay.
No,
Those are-
no, but so the thing that I saw that nobody mentioned yet was to build some trust and credibility with the audience. They mentioned showing your character and that you're competent can help have the audience believe what you're saying and trust the information that you're giving them.
And I think we talked a little bit about it yesterday. Like, people want to know why they're listening to you. You know, if you have experience with something, tell them your experience. If you're interested, tell them why you're interested. You know, that people they want to connect with you on a human level. So establishing credibility, and we're going to hear that a lot in this class, okay, is very important to be an effective speaker. You want people to trust you. You want them to believe you. You want them to, you know, then they'll feel comfortable to ask questions. They'll definitely want to pay attention. Okay, all those things are important. There's one more thing. You did nail that one. There's one more thing. And it's something that goes through an audience's mind. It's something that goes through a student's mind all the time. Let me ask you all a question. You know, those of you that have a little bit of experience going to college, is there a class that you've taken so far? Not this one, obviously. But is there a class that you've taken so far where you said to yourself, what am I doing here? Why is this a class? What do you got, Ben B? Oh, what are you doing? What do you got, Ben?
Psychology class.
So you don't plan on doing anything with psychology?
Not really. More so the instructor just made it like, why am I here? I'm not even learning anything.
The instructor did that? The instructor's like, why?
Yeah, no, the instructor sucked.
Okay, so think about that. What Ben just said, your audience, that's going to be a question that's on the top of their mind is, why am I here? Well, how is this topic relevant to anything in my life? Okay, so relevance. Okay, relevance is important. You need to find a way to, hey guys, this is a good teacher will say like, hey, this is why we're learning this. This is how it can be important to your life. Okay. I took a class, I was a business major, and for whatever reason, I had to take a calculus class. Okay. Now, I am not good at math. I don't know how calculus and business to this day interact with each other. Okay. But I had to take a business calculus class. And I remember sitting in this class while this guy who had been an engineer and actually helped design the lunar lander that landed on the moon. Now, he was one of 1,000 people that did that, but he was one of the people involved with that. So he was very passionate about engineering, and he was very passionate about why people should know calculus. Okay. But I was a marketing major. I sat there and I'm like, I'm going to make TV ads and commercials and write jingles and do press releases. I, under no circumstances, expect to ever use that zero with a line crossed through it. Those of you that are good at math, you know what I'm talking about. So for 15 weeks, that ran through my mind. Why is this important to me? Why do I need to know this? How is this going to be relevant in my life? Okay. Same thing with Ben. Ben might have said like psychology. It's a gen ed class. It was an elective, maybe. I have to take it. My teacher should have found a way to say like, hey, Ben, I know you probably won't, you know, this may not be your profession or this is your career, but here's some little ways that you can use psychology in everyday life. Okay. So relevance, credibility, clarity. Okay. Always keeping your audience top of mind. Okay. Those things are important when you're putting together an informative presentation. Okay. And again, you've been giving these your entire life. So I'm not telling you anything different, okay? Maybe no one's ever spelled it out like that before, but I'm not telling you anything too different. And that's why the informative presentation, and we're going to take a look at that in a second, isn't super complicated, okay? So let's hop into the informative presentation because that is your next speech. It's coming up in less than a week. Hold on one second. Let's get out here. So next Wednesday, you guys are going to come to class and everybody's going to be super stressed out, okay? Which is pretty typical, okay? Your informative presentation, we've been talking about it. And listen, it's worth the same amount of points as your student introduction presentation, except this time I'm going to be scrutinizing and providing some formative feedback about your speech. This one has a rubric, okay? And you can see how I'm going to grade you on things. So that can help you prepare for stuff. This is a speech where you will be timed, okay? And I don't want that to freak you out, but I'm looking for you to deliver 3 to 4 minutes of content about your innovation or innovator, okay? Your presentation should have some kind of structure. We'll talk a little bit about that next week, okay? I've given you some talking points to go through. Now, they're talking points. You can easily just give us answers to these, but an effective speaker, we've been talking about a way to make our presentations interesting. So it's important that you find ways to inject narrative, okay? Don't just provide answers, but provide, a fun way or an engaging way of taking in that information for your audience, okay? You do need to have a PowerPoint, okay? PowerPoint could just be images. It could be images and text. It could just be text. If your PowerPoint isn't perfect, that's okay. PowerPoints typically aren't perfect. And then at the end of your presentation, your audience, which is all the people sitting around you that we've been around for the last week, they're going to ask at least 2 questions at the end of your presentation. It's pretty easy, pretty standard, okay? The speech is really there to kind of build you up to, okay, now I'm being graded on my presentation. It's not just about me coming up and speaking and saying whatever comes to my mind, it's actual preparation, okay? And that's important because preparation, if you think about it, it's a 3 to 4 minute speech. You should spend, at least 10 times that amount on preparation for your speech, okay? So again, I think I told you this yesterday, summertime is my experiment time. It's when I'm trying out new things. So I don't have a student video, a video that I've taken of one of my students giving this presentation, okay? For the other presentations, I do have student videos that will show you exactly what I'm looking for. But we can take a look at this presentation. This one is pretty close. And I just want you to, we're going to watch it. And I want you to tell me, as we watch it, what you like about the presenter's speech. What does she do well? And where does she struggle? And listen, we're all intelligent adults. The eye test, when we see a speech, we hear a speech, there's certain kind of grounded things that we're like, oh, I like that. She's doing well here. Oh, I don't like that. She needs to work on that. And that's what I'm looking for. Pretend that you are a public speaking instructor. What do you like about her speech? Where's the student struggling? What does she need to fix? Okay, you can give her a letter grade if you'd like. So here we go. Let's get into it. Oh, hang on a second. I'm going to open this up. I'm sure there's an ad. All right, folks, there is no ad. Right, so here we go.
About cell phones, their uses, their positive impacts on our lives. So my first question to you, do you know who invented the first cell phone? No? Well, it's a man called Martin Cooper. He invented it in 1984. The first phone looked like this, cell phone. It had an antenna, it was bulky, it didn't have touch screen, and this is how it looked. It was launched by a company named Motorola, and it was really expensive. And today, over 94% of the society use cell phones. And can you go to the next slide? The first thing I'm going to be talking about with cell phones that you can, like if you have an emergency, you can call 911, and within a few minutes, an ambulance, police car, or fire trucks will show up and help you. According to how a phone can save a life, cell phones save a lot of lives today. You can also teach your kids that if there's an emergency to call 911 and to get help if their grandparents fell or if there's a fire at home or any other emergency. And also you can communicate with your family if you're going to be late home or something happened. Can you go to the next? Okay, so the next one is there's like a picture of how cell phones started to look and how they developed it today. We can see that first they were bulky, they had antennas, and as time goes by, they get better and better. They became more affordable, easier to carry because they're smaller. The cost, back in the 1990s, cell phones were really expensive, but as time went by, there's more companies, there's more competition, and cell phone prices became affordable to us. Also in the past, we paid a lot of money just for the cell phone line, and we had to pay for the minutes you talked, and today it's mostly unlimited. We can also text unlimitedly, like for the same price. And back in the day when you needed to call overseas, you had to buy a calling card, and it was really complicated to call overseas. But today you have apps like WhatsApp, Facebook, Skype, and you can call overseas for free, which is great. Can you go to the next slide? Another thing that is good with phones is that it can entertain us, so you can play games that can teach you mind games, and also you can get news quicker, you can read about articles, you can get informed if something happens. Your cell phone shows you different apps that you can download on it. And we can also use cell phones to study the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, all kinds of articles. And cell phones that just overall have good impact on our lives. Can you go to the next? In this picture, we can see that there's free international calls. We can call all different countries like Britain. And here there's a picture of like WhatsApp. That's an app that you can call for free overseas. And can you go to the next slide? Oh, okay, so I'm going to do my conclusion. Cell phones today are much more developed and affordable. There's a lot of competition, what makes the prices of the device vary. Technology always allows us to call overseas now, and we can use cell phones even to video chat today for free. Cell phones can help us during emergencies, and it can save lives. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, folks. So what stood out? Let's start with the good. What did she do? What did she do well with?
She started with a question, so it got people thinking and engaged from the start.
Okay, she started with a question, and when we're talking about introductions for a presentation, that's called an attention grabber. Okay, because the best time to get your audience's attention is right away, where people are still, they're interested, they just got there, they're curious, And as your speech goes on, your audience's attention tends to wane. So if you want to get it right off the bat and take it to the highest point possible, grab it in the beginning. She does a good job of that with her. It's called polling, when she asks a question and you're getting her audience. People like to be part of that. Okay, what else does she do well?
Oh, am I able to speak now?
Mhm.
Okay. I liked how she introduced who the inventor was of the cell phone. I like how she broke down how over time how technology got advanced and how the cell phones changed. She also broke down the differences between the time range, like over time, the changes of technology. And what else did she say? She explained why, like the overall explanation of cell phones. She also explained why it's a significant, I don't know if you want to call it an object but she just basically explained the significance of why a cell phone was invented and and the importance of the invention.
Met your expectations. You know, remember we talked about it yesterday that your audience, one of the things that you need to think about is what does your audience expect you to talk about? You know, if she says, hi, everyone, I'm going to tell you about the history of the cell phones and why they're so important. Bloop, like your audience already has that thought bubble where they're like, this is what I think she's going to talk about. And people tend to be very happy when their expectations are met. Okay, all right, so she does a good job there. What else? Give me something else. Come on, folks, one more good thing. What do you got? Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
She did a good job of projecting her voice, and she didn't like rush her speech too much. She did a good job of like speech timing and speech, like the volume level.
Okay, so the rate of her voice, the rate that she spoke is important, especially when teaching someone. Because you have to remember that your audience's brain is a sponge. I'm sure you've heard that before. And when you're giving information, you have to give your audience's brain enough time to soak in what you're saying so they can say, keep this, get rid of that. Data in, data out. I'm sure you've heard that. If you talk too fast, it makes it harder for people to understand. And if you're trying to teach somebody something, you've got to speak. And I'm not saying you have to talk really slow, but you've got to be conscious of the rate of your speed. And she speaks loud enough. She projects her voice. Okay, good. What does she need to work on? The other shoe has dropped out. Yeah, go ahead, Ryan. What do you got?
She was basically looking down at her note cards like most of the time, and she wasn't really making eye contact.
Why is that a problem, Ryan?
Because like it shows that like she wasn't really prepared, or she didn't like rehearse her speech. Otherwise, she would have been able to like not use note cards or just like glance at it. Like I felt like she was kind of like reading a lot of the time.
And here's the thing, that may not be the case. She might have been super prepared, but for Ryan, she doesn't make a lot of eye contact. So Ryan might think like, oh, she's not prepared. And that might take something away from her presentation. Okay. So we'll talk about this a lot when we get to delivery. Like eye contact's important because your audience, it's how you engage your audience. Okay. When you have a conversation with somebody, okay, don't you enjoy the conversation more when you are making, you know, frequent eye contact with the person you're talking to? You know, if you're talking to somebody and they're not looking at you, you know, that says, it could say a lack of confidence. It could say a lack of interest. It can send a message that you don't want to have sent. Okay. And it is one of the most difficult things, especially in a class like this, that people struggle with is eye contact. Okay. That and talking too fast are going to be the two biggest issues that you folks have. And that, again, experience helps it out. You know, people always ask, can I put things on note cards? Yes, but be careful, because you will have that little voice in your head, that fight or flight voice that's like, hey, You got everything on that note card. You could just read it to people and we'd all be happy. And you're like, thank you, voice. Okay. So yeah, eye contact. What else? What else could she work on? What else needs to be fixed? Formative feedback. Abida, what do you got?
I was just about to unmute. When she was explaining like the it was the one slide when it was showing like the sizes of the phones, and she kept reiterating like, oh, it was very expensive, it was very expensive. I was interested in knowing like the prices over time, like the first phone, and I feel like she could add a little bit more detail to her presentation
Okay.
about the pricings.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that an effective speaker does is they try to think about questions that your audience might have. Okay, so to Abida's point, if I keep putting up the price of this phone, is there ever a time while you're preparing, you're like, what if I put the prices of the phone? Or if there was a Q&A part, Abida might say like, hey, how much were those phones? It's a good idea to like, you think like, would somebody ask me how much the phones cost? And that's something, again, that's a little bit more advanced public speaking is when you start to think about what questions could be asked. But let me put it another way, like somebody like a defense attorney or somebody that, a lawyer, a trial attorney that goes into a courtroom, they never ask a question in that courtroom that they don't already know the answer to, okay? Because they don't want to leave things out there that could possibly unravel their case. Now, if you're talking about the history of cell phones, the stakes aren't as high as trying to get somebody off for murder, okay, or trying to convict somebody of murder. But it's something to be mindful of as you are putting your presentation together. It can help fill in details too if you feel that your presentation isn't long enough. What am I not telling my audience that might interest my audience? One more thing that she needs to fix. Come on, where are my negative Nellies out there? Let's go. Light her up. What do you got? Go ahead, Gary.
All right, so I noticed two things. One was just that she announced in her transition to the conclusion that she was about to give her conclusion. That's not really that big of a deal. But the thing that kind of threw me off was I was not sure where she was going with the speech at times. I feel like she could have narrowed the topic a little more or had a little more structure in the delivery of the information. I kind of at times was not sure what she was trying to say. Like she was saying at times that cell phones are good, and other times she was talking about financial aspects of the cell phone and data. So I was kind of all over the place in terms of what she really wanted to explain to us.
So what that means is her speech didn't have a lot of structure, okay? Another thing that we'll talk about when we get to introductions is, along with grabbing your audience's attention, you want to preview the main points in your introduction that you're going to talk about, okay? That way your audience kind of has, before you launch into the body of your speech, your audience has almost like a table of contents or a checklist of what they're about to hear. So that way they're not as confused as you move through your speech. That's number one. Always try to preview your main points. Always try to give some kind of, hey folks, this is what we're going to talk about in the rest of my speech kind of moment, okay?
I have a question.
Sure.
Oh, well, this was actually to, I don't know who this person is next to me on my video. It says Gary.
Gary.
I'm Noah, actually.
Okay, yeah, that's why I heard you the first time when you said your name. Okay, so I just had a response to his comment. So as far as her presentation, or just on the overall in general, regardless on who's presenting a project of whatever, does it necessarily mean that everything that we present would have structure? Or like, because I'm just asking, because are you going based off of structure or just?
So when I say structure, I mean, maybe she says something about the production of cell phones and then says something about the consumer and flips back and forth, or does production first and consumer second. But I felt like she didn't have any plan in the information that was being, like, the information didn't really have a train of like,
Like the correlation.
yeah, there wasn't really
Okay.
any type of correlation between the topics. It was kind of just like
Yeah.
random facts. and
Okay, so,
information.
okay, so I understand that. Okay, so my question to Mr. Bryan, so when you expect us to present any presentations in your class, are you looking for order, or do you just want the information to not only be, sufficient enough where if you're going to look it up and research on your own, you just want the information to actually be, we all know when we research, everything can be a little outdated, but you just want to know that what we're talking about makes sense. And like I said, if you research it yourself, you know that the information is true. Is that what you're more so looking for, or do you want order?
We're going to build to that.
Okay.
We're going to build to an order because, again, one of the reasons we start with the informative speech is you guys are all picking a topic and you're probably going to use chronological order to talk about that topic, like when it first was invented, and the kind of order in time, how that became a big deal. And then your demonstration speech already has kind of an order built into it. By the time we get to the persuasive speech, that's where kind of the governor's taken off. And it's more like, how do you want to structure? Okay. And structure's important because it keeps your audience on track. And it's also subjective too. Like one person might be able to follow something very clearly with very little direction, and then Noah might say like, I needed more direction to take me through. And it doesn't mean that Noah's bad or good or whatever. It just means like, those are things that you need to be conscious about. Ryan, you had your hand up. What do you got?
Oh, I was gonna say, I was confused why she didn't even mention like the iPhone. Was that just me, or like she didn't talk about it at all?
It could be, first of all, I don't know how old that video is, number one. Number two, that's why I'm affording questions at the end of your speeches. So maybe she doesn't mention the iPhone, and then she's like, are there any questions? And then Ryan's question is, how come we didn't talk about the iPhone? And that's what's great about questions. Questions can clarify issues that your audience has that while you're giving your presentation, they're missing something. So that's why questions are important. Okay. So listen, it's not the greatest speech in the world, and I didn't show you that. And I don't show you speeches to say like, oh, this is awesome. It's to give you just kind of an example of a mindset of what your presentation should look and sound. Okay. So folks, we're going to wrap things up. Your homework, get your informative presentation topics submitted. Do the review questions for chapters 1, 3, 4, and 14. If you run into any issues, I am checking my Canvas messaging. I'm checking my email. Some of you have even sent me texts. Those are all fine. But that's what we've got going on for week number 2. Is there anything I can address before I let you guys go?
I have a question about the review questions. Are you looking for a certain amount of like, you just specifically want us to answer the questions? It doesn't matter if it's a paragraph or not. Just answer the questions and that's it.
Some people.
And when we send it to you, do you want us to write out? I mean, I did this for my other class where I actually wrote out the question and answered it. Or do you just strictly want the answers?
It's up. If you are a write out the question person, be my guest. I don't care.
Okay.
I'm looking for feedback.
Okay. All right.
I'm not looking at.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, everybody. I will see you all on Monday. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Thanks, Professor. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Thank
Have a good
you.
weekend.